Hey everyone, welcome to Runestone Reptiles. I'm your host, Chad. Feeding time is one of my favorite times with my snakes. I've always enjoyed watching the snake strike and seeing the coils wrap around the rodents. I've spent well over an hour just sitting and watching large reticulated pythons eat. The longer I've been in and a part of the reptile community, the more I've seen how controversial and argumentative the topic of snake feeding can be. Unfortunately, I've seen keepers shunned and others talk down to their peers over this topic. We are going to discuss live feeding rodents versus frozen thawed. When I got my first snake in college, she was a beautiful orange corn snake. She was eating frozen thawed rodents, but I didn't think that was very cool, and I found a local pet shop and bought a rodent and started live feeding my snakes. I was new to the reptile community, and I hadn't really stopped to ask why my snake was being fed the way that she was. I just thought that it was cooler as a live feeding. I made a decision based off of the cool factor. Today, I prefer feeding with frozen thawed feeders. There are many reasons why I try not to feed my ball pythons live feeders. The biggest reason is the safety of the beasties in my collection. Rodents have teeth and claws, and when threatened, the mice and rats will fight back. If the snake doesn't get a hold of the rodent correctly, or if the snake doesn't eat the rodent right away, the rodent can in turn try to eat the snake. It is also easier for me to buy food for my beasties in bulk. I make a little room in my freezer, and I have food for a few months, and this is much more convenient for me. At the time of this video, I have to drive 2 hours one way to pick up a live feeder, and the gas adds up quickly. I can order frozen feeders a little cheaper than I can live rodents. And the frozen thawed doesn't stink up my house or poop in the enclosures. Honestly, my views have changed since my first snake. In college, I would have told you live feeders was the way to go. It was cool and more natural. Now I think frozen thawed is the better feeding method. That being said, I'm not here to bash on live feeders or judge keepers who use live feeders. Dusk here is a great example of why we shouldn't shame keepers. When I bought Dusk, my intention was to feed her frozen thawed rodents. I spent months offering frozen thawed, and every meal she refused it. I checked my husbandry, I made minor adjustments, and she still refused to eat. I caught a few wild mice in a mousetrap and tried offering her freshly killed meals. I offered her smaller meals than what she needed. Nothing was working. After months of trying and watching my snake get skinnier and skinnier, finally, out of desperation, I bought a live rat and placed it in her enclosure. I sat on my couch and watched the rodent race around the enclosure. I was certain that this was going to fail too, and I was going to have to take some very drastic steps in order to save my little beastie here. Suddenly, I watched as Dusk slowly showed interest in the rodent racing around. She began stalking the prey. She struck, killed, and ate the rat. I was so excited. The next week, I offered her a frozen thawed meal, hoping that she would finally start eating. When she refused that meal again, I drove 4 hours to pick up another feeder. As soon as that rat entered her enclosure, she started hunting, and she enjoyed another meal. Now this was months and months, probably getting close to a year ago, that I started feeding her live feeders. And she's a big, healthy, beautiful girl now. Every time it's her turn to eat a meal, I pull out a frozen thawed feeder from my freezer and offer it to her. After she refuses, I make a plan to drive 4 hours to pick up a feeder for my animal. Ultimately, the moral of the story is don't go judging a keeper if they choose to feed their snakes a live feeder. There is no reason to throw around so much hate at someone, especially if you don't know why they are feeding their beasties the way that they are. Do I think frozen thawed is the better method for feeding my snakes? 100%. But that doesn't change the fact that every few weeks I'm driving 4 hours to pick up a single live rat. Because at the end of the day, Dusk doesn't understand that I'm spending a fortune on gas to pick up her meal. Dusk doesn't understand the hardship a live feeder brings into my life. She isn't trying to inconvenience me. Dusk is just the way that she is. Feeding isn't always on my schedule or done the way that I want. I have to adapt to my animals, not the other way around. That is life. Not everything works out the way that we want. In the end, I think a snake eating regularly and healthy is much more important than saving a few bucks and being convenient. If you feed your snake live feeders, that is fine. I just hope that you watch your animals carefully and keep them safe. I've seen some nasty bites that rodents have given snakes over the years. I never leave Dusk's side until the live feeder is no longer alive. I'm right there just in case I need to step in and keep my beasties safe. Which method of feeding do you use? Frozen thawed or live feeders? Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you next time.